All right, we're live. All right, come on in, everybody. We're going to wait a sec for people to find us here. Sorry, we've been missing the last couple weeks. We've been trying to keep up with everything going on at the ledge. Cassie, how you doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I got my first dose of the vaccine, so I'm pretty stoked about
Oh,
that.
wow, look at you. Yeah, I'm not there yet. My wife's
Yeah.
vaccinated, but I
That's good.
haven't done the deed yet. How about you guys out there? You guys vaccinated, waiting to be vaccinated? How's it going near you? Let us know what's going on in the comments. We'd love to hear how the vaccination situation is going by you. Also, as always, we're tnholler.com, and we have all these hollers throughout the state. Thanks to your support and generosity. $10 a month will send you a holler hat. That all really helps. And subscribe over at tnholler.com to get our twice weekly emails. That is all the ways that you can really support us, and it all helps a lot. Today we're going to have on Aerris and Antoine from Planned Parenthood in Memphis, and so we'll look forward to talking to them. Before we get there, though, a couple things that are going on around here that we're tracking in the legislature. First of all, Governor Lee is on the run, hasn't done a press conference in 2 weeks. He is fleeing reporters. Yesterday, he was fleeing a reporter in Nashville after a photo op. The reporter was asking him about the vaccine distribution, which he didn't want to talk about. He was asking him about his maskless jaunt through Broadway.
Do we have a photo of that? That was
Let me see if we have
hilarious.
a photo of that. I don't know if I have one of
Let
those,
me
but I
see.
do know that people are very disappointed in him, especially in Vanderbilt and scientists and health experts, because of his, flouting of the Nashville mask mandate. And his own health department is out there saying, don't be maskless in front of people. Don't go inside maskless. He's not vaccinated, but there he is doing it anyway because he just does not care. And, he's, I guess, pandering to the anti-science part of the state. I'm not even sure
I
what's
don't
going
even
on
know.
there. I don't either.
I really don't even know. It's like it's like pandering and then also just like trying to do some weird ditch effort for like businesses to come here, but it's like I don't know, it's obviously extremely unsafe, and it's just like, who is this? Who are you trying to please with this? Because like all the super far right people like can't stand him anyway. I don't
I don't
know.
know who he's trying to please, but I was on that Fox show that I do on Friday or on Sunday
Right.
mornings, and both the Republicans on there were like, "Yeah, good job, dude. Like
Really?
setting a good example." And Nashville's open for business. Like they were cheering it. So
Yeah.
apparently he knows his audience, I guess, but it's really gross.
You mean
And
this guy right here?
oh, is that? Yeah, that's that easy smile. I guess if I had such an easy smile, I would probably be going maskless also. It's
Such an
really hard.
inviting smile.
It's just very selfless of him to share that easy smile with us all the time. Before we get to Aerris and Antoine, I just wanted to share a couple of videos. We've been making videos of the legislature so that you guys don't have to watch all of the long videos. And one of the videos that we shared that has been watched 60,000 times since last night was this video of Senator Akbari's effort to abolish slavery once and for all in Tennessee, which seems like something that should have bipartisan support, seems like something everybody should support and vote for, but apparently not. And last night there were literally 4 Republicans who voted against her effort to abolish slavery once and for all in our Constitution, including for prisoners. Brian Kelsey led the charge.
Because it doesn't do anything one way or the other, I would urge my colleagues to blue light this resolution.
Now, let's be clear. It does do something. In the Constitution, slavery is still allowed for prisoners. That's why Senator Akbari is changing the language. And her language says that you can still work if you're a prisoner, because there was some concern that prisoners who do jobs for money would not be able to do that anymore. And she said, no, you can do that. And he sort of conflated the two and said, well, that means that it doesn't do anything, which it absolutely does.
I'll be voting no. I just think it's ultimately fake history that the 1870 Constitution allowed slavery.
It's not fake history because, as we've said, Senator Akbari is literally changing something where it says you can enslave prisoners.
Does do something because there's a difference between the word working and slavery. I've worked. I have never been a slave. That's a clear distinction. I'm proposing to close a loophole that has an exception for slavery for those who are duly convicted of a crime. And that's a strong message we can send as a state.
Now, okay, so yes, that's a pretty strong message. Seems pretty inarguable. Everybody should, that's not something that anybody should be against.
I don't know how you're going to argue against that.
How are you going to argue against that? I don't know.
Well,
But
let's
so
watch nicely.
now here's nicely, and he can't actually argue against it, so he just plays really dumb, like really dumb, like
He does that
like
pretty well.
yeah, like this should not be a senator in our legislature if you
Yeah.
can't understand that we're abolishing slavery here. But watch this sort of argument.
A non-lawyer, and most of my voters are non-lawyers, and I can't explain this amendment in words they can understand. I don't understand it, and the Constitution is too sacred to clutter up with a lot of stuff that non-lawyers can't explain to other non-lawyers. So I guess I'll be voting no on this.
I mean, that is like he is literally saying, I am too dumb to put on my socks in the morning. Like, how can you not understand? Like, she just explained it to you really clearly, like word for word, what's going on here. You can make a shitty argument, but you can't say I don't understand it. Like
that is mind-blowing.
Completely unacceptable and does not work on any level. But Frank Nicely,
He's just grasping at straws at that point. Like, that's unbelievable.
Right. I mean, that is some really desperate stuff.
It's so desperate.
But if you follow him on Twitter, Frank Nicely says really dumb things all the time. So
if the shoe fits, I mean,
dumb. It's possible that's what's going on here.
And only lawyers can be smart and understand that slavery shouldn't exist, apparently.
Right.
It shouldn't be enshrined in our Constitution. And we shouldn't be taking advantage of inmates, of prisoners.
Right. Apparently that's too difficult of legalese to say, abolish slavery. What? I don't get it.
I don't understand.
I don't understand it either.
That's these folks right here as well. That's these folks right here.
Yes, there's the Slavery Caucus. Yes, that's the graphic that Cassie made, which I think is fantastic. And on that note, we also have another deeply racist thing going on, which is let me move that comment or that banner. The lawmakers, Rep. John Reagan and Senator Joey Hensley, are now threatening to literally impeach Governor Lee if that KKK bust in the state legislature comes out. So we've now gone from the Capitol Commission voting nearly unanimously to the Historical Commission voting nearly unanimously to now Representative Reagan and Hensley saying, if you move it, we're going to impeach you. That's what their resolution says. McNally is also throwing up roadblocks. So, it's just so clear how, committed these guys are to this grand wizard. Their bill also says you can't even obstruct the hideously ugly one on I-65 that was built by a guy who defends slavery. So, that's why we're now going all out and just putting Klan hoods on these guys, because like, how many different ways do they need to tell us that they're racist as hell? Like, how many different ways are they going to tell us that until we start just throwing up hoods on their heads? Like, that's where we are now.
I mean, these things, it's like they talk about, they're like, oh, well, we can't, they always throw like process or something else, or like the Constitution, or all these different arguments up in the face of like removing these artifacts, these racist artifacts from our history, especially, Nathan Bedford Forrest in both of these statues. And it's like, these things should not be difficult. Like, when it comes to things that they want to get done, that stuff doesn't matter. Like all the process arguments and all that other bullshit, like, doesn't matter. So it's very clear that it's just, they want them to stay. And with a character that's as blatant as Nathan Bedford Forrest, like, exactly why they want them to stay.
Yes, it's their commitment to white supremacy that permeates so many things, and it shows up very blatantly these days, and it's just, you just have to want to see it, and it's right there. There's no denying it anymore. One other thing I wanted to mention before we get our guest today is there's this permitless carry bill, and the Senate. It just passed Senate committee, and there was a conversation about it today where Mike Bell threw out all the usual, arguments for it and saying $100 is too much. And, Second Amendment, they always throw out the well-regulated part of the Second Amendment. They don't like those two words that are in there, no matter what they say.
Jerry Sexton.
Jerry Sexton. But then there was also this moment where Senator Mike Bell, he started talking about the First Amendment and saying that, we don't put any limits on the First Amendment, which is just not true. And then as part of his argument, he said this.
We don't require training for people to exercise their First Amendment right. We don't check media's badges at the door.
We don't check media's badges at the door. We don't.
You know
check
that
media.
very well.
That is not true, and we have the receipts. We're told not let in specifically.
You're not a legitimate media.
According to who? Is there other media in here?
Yes, sir.
So why am I not allowed in?
You're not a legitimate media.
According to who?
According to my supervisor.
We do have some
Okay, so Mike Bell either lied or he is admitting that McNally is violating our First Amendment rights. One of the two has to
You
be
gotta
true.
pick. It's like that
gotta
meme
pick.
where you're pressing the button. Like, which one
Gotta
are you
press
gonna
one of those
pick?
buttons. Right. Either you're lying or you're on our side, Mike. And so what I would say is, Mike, come to our defense. If you really want to show that your argument for your Second Amendment bill is valid, then it's time for you to come to our defense and go to bat for us with McNally and have McNally and Flacknally let us in the Capitol. Thank you for admitting what we've been saying all along, that McNally is violating our First Amendment rights. We appreciate it, Mike Bell, very much. And then just as a button on this, this was Mike Bell basically admitting he doesn't understand how laws work.
Restrictions on First Amendment rights. You cannot holler fire crowded theater.
Could be semantics. I would probably disagree that the First Amendment prevents you from saying fire in a crowded theater. You absolutely can say fire in a crowded theater. You're just going to suffer the consequences.
Wait a minute.
Exactly.
Wait a minute. So if there are consequences, then it's not an unlimited right. Like, what? I don't
That's
even
not
know.
the freedom to do it. Like, that's exactly.
right.
Oh my god.
Right.
You can
not-
do anything. I have the freedom to go rob a store. Then,
or kill
like,
someone. Or kill
Yeah.
someone. You can kill someone. Just suffer the consequences by Mike Bell's rationale
you do
for
have
how
the freedom
laws
to
work.
do it.
You have the freedom to do it. You're just going to go to jail for it. Wait a minute. What is he talking about? So Mike Bell does not understand how laws work. This is the revelation for the day. And he's a sitting senator in Tennessee and a powerful one, a chairman, carries
Oh, yeah.
bills, but doesn't seem to understand how laws work. So that was another moment where it's just like a record scratch moment. And he had two of them in that permitless carry situation. All right. Anyway, Mike Bell lying. Is that possible? Joseph Gary wants the slavery caucus.
Oh,
thing. So
there you
we
go.
Go ahead and
We will
screenshot
post it.
that.
I'm sure we'll post
Happy
it
to
as
post
well.
it, send it to you. Yes. And let's go ahead and bring in our guest. I thought we had two, so I was sort of stalling until Antoine got here, but Aerris is here, so we'll go ahead and talk.
Yeah.
unmute
Hi,
yourself.
everybody.
How are you? How do you
Hello.
pronounce your name? Is it Aerris?
Hello. Yeah, you got it. Perfect.
Aerris. Okay. Well, welcome.
Yes. And actually, Antoine should be here in a second. I just texted him.
Okay.
He said he was logging in. So,
Okay. Well, welcome.
But-
Well, first of all, tell us, have we gone too far with this? Do you think? Is this? Have we
I
gone too
don't think.
far?
I
Put you on the
think
spot right away.
No, actually, I think that that's an accurate representation. That's probably what they look like when they go home after a hard
Right.
day of work at the Capitol.
Oh, it's just a
definitely-
towel
appropriate.
after they get out of the shower, right?
It's in their closet somewhere. We're just taking it out of their closet for them. Aerris, thank you for joining us. So tell us, you're at Planned Parenthood in Memphis.
Mhm.
What does that entail? How big is the operation over there? Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I am the West Tennessee community organizer. So I work with both Planned Parenthood of Tennessee and North Mississippi, as well as with Tennessee Advocates for Planned Parenthood. Antoine, he's the community engagement coordinator. So it's the two of us. And then also we have a Latinx program. So we've got Liliana Santos with the Raiz program. So it's a pretty decent operation here in Memphis. And also not to mention, statewide, we've got staff in Nashville, staff in Knoxville. We're actually working on getting staff in Chattanooga. So we're definitely expanding here. So pretty decent size operation, I'd say.
So when you talk to people in the community, you know, there's obviously a lot of misconceptions and myths around Planned Parenthood, maybe not so much in Memphis, but certainly in the rural parts of the state. What are some of the misconceptions, and what does Planned Parenthood focus on mostly? You know, what's the pitch, I guess, for when hey, Antoine's joining us. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
Good. We just heard a little bit about you. We were just getting into what the myths and facts around Planned Parenthood are, and you know what you guys really focus on.
Absolutely.
Do you want to jump in with that answer for that, Antoine?
Absolutely. Okay, so the question is, what does Planned Parenthood stand for?
Yeah, what do you guys do mostly? Because you know we hear a lot of the myths and you know the false facts from the opposition. What is the pitch from you guys?
Well, I definitely want to say the opposition people are very strategic and great at messaging. What Aerris and I do a lot in my department is, besides destigmatizing those myths, we actually put them into action on the side of Planned Parenthood that we work in. So we obviously, you know, fight for policy changes, new policies, fight against things that can be harmful to our patients. And it's just an ongoing thing. I mean, obviously, you know, Planned Parenthood is also a healthcare organization that provide all kinds of services in terms of reproductive health, sexual wellness. We are a comprehensive sex education organization. So it's so many things that we do. But, you know, well, Aerris and I have the lovely job of making sure that we are legal and able to practice safe, you know, medical practices in Tennessee, and just being able to be a place that people feel safe coming to get sexual health care or just wraparound services that we offer.
Yeah.
From a very non-judgmental space.
Yes, that's what I was going to add. Like, people think that we're out here pushing people to have sex and telling people what to do, but really we're not. What we're doing is we're telling people that it's your life. You can live the life you want to live. We're going to give you the tools and the education, information, medication, whatever it is, so that you can make the best decisions for yourself, the safest, healthiest decisions for yourself.
Well, a lot of times it seems like the focus is on people who don't want to have the child, but you guys also mainly help with people who do and help them figure out, you know, their lives and what to expect and help guide that process. You know, what is something like when someone comes in the door for the first time, like what's the process of making them feel comfortable?
Well, it starts with, it starts with the training our staff receive. All of our staff, regardless of whether you work out in the community or if you work in the health center, we all get trained on a standard of, you know, how to honor people's experiences, how to, you know, ask questions in a way that's, you know, not judgmental. Antoine, did you want to add something?
Absolutely. I think that you hit the nail right on the head. Definitely being prepared to take on any person who comes in our door who want our help, and being able to make sure that people feel welcome, number one, and feel validated in being who they are, and not creating an environment, especially being in the South, where people feel like because of some of the, you know, Caribbean and the Bible Belt, that you can only come to a space in one way. And I think one thing that really speaks out to me is that when I started learning that, you know, when you have hospitals and medical groups that are under like religious affiliations, they can actually deny people services based on religious point of views or based on their, which can be pretty much, if I don't want to serve a trans person or a gay person or whomever, you know, a person show up, I can deny services. And I just think that's so patriotic. It's so unfair. It's so inhuman. And I think that working for Planned Parenthood allows us to tap on being better humans. I know for me, the work has been transformational personally in my life. And I think that's been something that's retained me there more than I would have ever imagined. So I love to give that back to our patients when they come to the door, or to people who want to get involved.
That's really cool. Yeah. I mean, I love the way that you put that. It just like, you know, kind of like showing people how to be more empathetic humans. I think that, just from my own experience, just from like a women's health standpoint, Planned Parenthood has been, it's a fantastic resource. And so I guess with you all being in the Memphis area, and with what you were just saying, Antoine, about just kind of like some of the more typically marginalized communities, what do you see as like some of the biggest issues that, people who, women and all people that benefit from Planned Parenthood, what are the biggest issues facing those communities in your area?
That's a very, very big question, but I think one of the because it's almost like you have the issue, the macro issues, and there's the micro issues, and I think one of the biggest issues in the community abroad that I see is people having honestly a safe space to talk about their bodies from a sexual perspective, and I hear it across racial lines, I see it across sex lines and how people identify, and really having a place to feel empowered. One of the things that I struggled with moving back to Memphis from California many years ago is really how to have conversations with people about just things that were sexualized based, running across families who were scared to talk, who didn't know how to talk to their kids about sex or, reproductive health. And I could tell you an example that happened. I was when I first started at Planned Parenthood, I was a condom distributor, and I would go, and I was literally in a barbershop one day, and it was a grandfather, and it was a son, and it was a grandson, and like they had questions about like STDs and STIs, and like when I was giving answers, like all three of them was like, huh? Yeah. It was like, and I was like, oh, the whole family's in trouble. No. But it was like, but it was really cool because what happens is every time I would go into these places and take condoms, the conversations that people wanted to have, they were able to have. And we wouldn't have had those conversations because and I'm sure the people that I was talking to never probably would have known or would have cared about coming to Planned Parenthood. So me being in their space was more helpful. So, so to me, that's access is one of the biggest issues. Just access to knowledge and access to healthcare is just the biggest issue across the board.
I'm curious about, some of the things that this state suffers from that are not very publicized are, our low infant maternal mortality, or not low, our high infant maternal mortality.
Right.
Yeah. We're at the bottom in both.
We're
of those
ranked
things.
low. Yeah.
I'm curious, your perspective doing what you do you see that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Representative London Lamar, she's got some great legislation trying to, work on that around not just infant mortality, but, speaking to marginalized communities, there's that Black maternal death rate. Black women are more likely to die in childbirth than white women, even like compared to other industrialized nations. And, personally, as a Black woman, that's like, it's a scary thought of, if I were to decide to have children one day, I could possibly lose my life because I'm a Black woman. So as far as, marginalized communities, you definitely hear it, that's stories of, women who've lost children or, people who've lost mothers due to these issues. There's these are people's family members. These are people's friends, like in the community, people know people that this has happened to. So it's definitely something we got to work on in this state for sure.
It's also worth pointing out that after this American Rescue Plan, there's now like $1.7 billion on the table every year for our state to take in to help expand Medicaid to cover some of the women that we're talking about. And there have been studies that showed, dozens, if not hundreds of women have lost their lives because their insurance lapsed postpartum, and that would have had insurance had we expanded Medicaid. So it's quite literally policy murder that we didn't expand Medicaid, especially in the Black community. What are some other bills that are snaking their way through our legislature that you guys are aware of that people should be aware of?
There are tons. Lots of bad stuff happening. There's the impregnator bill that you might have talked about with Francie and Tori a couple weeks ago. That's still working its way through committee. Basically, that would give, if someone claims, they don't even have to prove that they're the actual biological father. If someone claims that they're a biological father, they can basically prevent a woman from seeking an abortion service if that's what she chooses to do with her body, which is just, wild because there's no, like I said, they don't even have to prove that they're the father. It could just claim.
It just gives them full control. Like it's just so transparent it's just about control with that. It just lays it bare.
Definitely the word. Absolutely. One of the things that we have started saying that we heard from somebody who I think was a conservative in background, and it has a political bent. And I know you guys aren't political, but or not partisan, I guess I should say, is that Republicans, what's the saying, Cassie? I'm already losing it.
It's always hard to remember off the top of our heads.
Abortion. Okay, I got it. Republicans want to make abortion illegal. Democrats want to make abortion unnecessary. And a lot of times the solution to the abortion situation, it's financial a lot of times why women are making that decision. And some of these programs helping with daycare, raising the minimum wage, for instance, there are a lot of ways to help make this decision easier on women that are not abortion related. Do you guys see that also? And do you see that it's really a matter of circumstance?
Yes. First of all, I like to say that folks who can have babies have abortions for so many reasons, and it's really across the board. One, I remember when I first started, if I had $1 for every story that I heard that was compelling, I'd probably be hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings right now. But it was I've literally have heard stories from college students who was like, hey, like, I feel like my whole life is riding on this. I feel like, like I'm so close. I've come so far. Like, I just cannot be a parent right now. Or I've heard stories of folks who may have come out of an abusive situation, and the pregnancy was really something that was done to, hold them into a position to be, subject to violence. I've heard situations I've heard stories of folks who just like, I just sent my baby to college. Like, my husband and I have talked about this. We are just not doing it. And also, I like to name that abortion is not just a woman issue. I've heard stories of men who want to know how to support their wives or their girlfriends or their partners in these situations. They wanted to know if they were doing the right things. And I think what happens is when we remove that narrative that there are male partners who want to be supportive, when we kind of tear down the thing that it's like, that it's just strictly, a woman's thing, it kind of put the men and women against each other. And I've seen so many situations where it has been supported, and men really, really do. I've met so many men, which leads me to believe that there's so many men that want to know, how would I navigate this option successfully as a family? And that's what people are wanting to do. So we can't forget that it's a family decision. It's a personal decision. It's a justice situation for some folks. Is I'm just really not ready right now situation. I don't. It's a health situation that I can't carry a child full term. It's so many situations. It's not one sided at all.
I mean, you got sorry, go ahead, Cassie. I was just gonna say you got. No matter what the laws are here, wealthy people will always be able to make this happen for their families and themselves. You got Desjardins making the laws, paying for abortions on his own. Right. This is an inequality issue. Everything's an inequality issue, but especially this issue.
Absolutely.
And so, and then the other thing that I would say is, I can say with 100% certainty that if men were the ones that carried the child, this would have been settled hundreds of years ago.
Right. Absolutely. I I just wanted to say, Antoine, that was I just never heard it framed that way before. It really is an issue that just like pits, at least the binary gender is just kind of that narrative with men and women, the traditional sense, like against each other. And that I just thought that was such a good point, that it really is. I mean, there are so many other, men out there and people out there that are supportive in these situations, and that it comes down to not only, as Justin said earlier, definitely like the financial aspect, and it's definitely an inequality issue, and then also just like a miseducation, like people are just not educated
hugely miseducated.
Yeah, and
Hugely
it's stigmatized.
Yes, absolutely.
So stigmatized.
Yeah.
Everybody assumes like they use like the term late term and make it sound like this
right.
big baby, and that's not the case. Like at the time that if people only know, there has been times like these are Planned Parenthood doctors are medical professionals, so there are times where they can't always support a person. People do come too late. I mean, these are medically professionally trained people who can make these calls.
Right. They're not activists. Like
right,
they're not
medical professionals, and that's one thing that's really, really, really different, and that we have to always take in consideration. They are responsible for these patients' lives, and at the end of the day, I just, honestly, I just think what you said too early was just so important. Is this that I think it's just we've got this thing to a place where people think it is like this thing that we should all have control over what someone else do, and we've gotten so entitled to being told what to do that we don't know how to be told what not to do. And look at all the historical references. I mean, I can even lift right now someone who's really important in my life, who's a family member who grew up in the 50s, who was like an auntie to me. And what really, the first time I ever heard abortion, her mother forced her to have an abortion many years ago, and it scarred her uterus, and she was never able to have children. And she lived, and I know this woman lived and she died with this all of her life, and she was very disappointed. Had she had access to safe and legal abortion, she would have been able to continue to have children when she was ready.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. It'll continue to happen regardless.
It will continue to happen regardless. And so just think about that. This definitely is about promoting family. If people will go to, if they can't go to Planned Parenthood, they're going to go somewhere where they can get this done. And what we want is for people to be safe. No one should have to die on the table anymore. There shouldn't be a conversation. I mean, we're in the 21st century.
Right.
We can do this. We can do this safely and easily. This is still an outpatient procedure, believe it or not, y'all.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And I see Francie, and I think all of you are calling their legislation forced birth legislation, and because it's not pro-life. It's not pro-life to be against subsidizing daycare for low-income families. It's not pro-life to block Medicaid expansion. It's not pro-life to be against raising the wage. It's not pro-life to push back on reimbursing families for missed school kids meals that just happened today. Joey Hensley, so if you're really pro-life, it should be supporting organizations like yours that keep women from having to go into back alleys, and lifting up the lowest or the least among us, which is to use a biblical phrase. And so otherwise it's just forced birth, which is, I think. And let's
talk about the lack of sex education that actually is also a huge social determinant to all
legislated
in a state like Tennessee, where comprehensive sex education is basically illegal.
No, it's not basically. It is.
It is right. I want to be
he's my senator. He's our senator, Jack Johnson.
Yeah, Jack Johnson.
Exactly. So my thing, a teacher can be fined with up to $500 per student for teaching, sex education in a class. And this is the same information that when they don't understand this, you see an increase in teenage pregnancies. And all these other issues that we're talking about that happen, in terms of whether you decide to go full term with a pregnancy or not, are things that happen because people just don't know about their body, and people are asking for it. People are asking for, kids want to know, adults want to know.
There's such
and
a
I feel like a lot of this, comes down to judgment. I feel like there's a lot of judgment happening from legislators, judging about blaming folks for getting in situations, judging folks for, so you had this child, but we're going to judge you and not give you resources SNAP benefits or
until it happens to them.
Yeah.
Right. Cause
Mhm.
like, you know, it's, and this is sort of the through line with everything that we talk about. It's there's no empathy, you know,
Yeah,
it's
no
not,
empathy.
there's no empathy on any of this stuff. And until it happens to you
Yeah.
or your
Exactly.
family, and then, oh yeah, you'll pay for that abortion and hope nobody finds out.
And the crazy thing is, some people don't. It has happened to their family, and they don't
Right.
even know because their family members don't
Won't
feel
tell 'em.
safe enough.
That's
to tell them.
true. It's the same with like drug issues as
That's
well.
probably
Like,
true
I
a
mean,
lot.
like, I mean, he wasn't a politician, but just like Rush Limbaugh, you know, was like addicted to various substances, but would rail against. He was a huge proponent of like the war against drugs, essentially. So it's, I mean, which just
The
speaks
guy
to the
died
Republican
of
Party.
lung cancer.
Exactly.
And he was saying that the cigarette smoke or cigar smoke is fine. He died of lung
Exactly.
cancer. Like that wasn't
Right.
a bigger part.
It's the
big enough
same
part of the story.
hypocrisy. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Mhm.
I've literally heard. I've literally heard folks who's encountered folks who's actually had abortion maybe once or twice still tell me they are against abortion.
Wow.
That is some
Amazing. I believe
mind-boggling.
it.
Literally,
What
the
about,
words
you know,
were,
Yeah.
what do you say to-
I did it,
Yeah.
but I'm still against it for X, Y, and Z reasons, and
Oh my God.
I just did this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. You mentioned late-term abortion, and that's another thing that they are always throwing out there. And I have a friend who went through that. You know,
That's not even a medically accurate term, by the
or
way.
whatever
Like,
it is.
that's not what the doctors call
What
it.
they say.
Yeah.
What would they
right.
call it real quick?
My friend, this is what happened to her. She delivered the child. The child couldn't survive. They had to make a really difficult decision. It like nearly broke her. She visits the grave, you know, still to this day.
Mhm.
And that's who they're calling a murderer. She's pro-life, by the way. And that's who they're calling a murderer, is a woman who went through that. You know, it's just not a thing. And like, they just find these falsehoods that they feel like they can hang around us. And at the end of the day, they work because people believe them, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
I think people believe. It's almost kind of like people can assess other people's lives, but they can't assess their own. And you know, I think the most important thing is that sex is just a thing that's gonna happen, right? And it's not a matter of if and when.
That's so romantic,
you know,
Antoine.
it's just gonna happen. Like, and I think, and I'm gonna tell you something. It's funny because even when I first started working at Planned Parenthood, and I walk in the stock room with all the condoms, and we literally spend like $100,000 a year like on condoms and stuff, and it's like. And I'm like, all these, and even I was like, oh my God, it's just so much in here. And it took me a while to get to the point, like, okay, boom. Like, I would literally do a condom demonstration in the middle of church in the synagogue. Like, I would just, it doesn't matter, because I realized people just want to know. And it never fails, like, when we were out able to do public events and, you know, you set up a table and, you know, sometimes people won't come by, but it never failed that it was always somebody who needed to see you. And people would just come by and people say, Antoine, how did you know all these great abortion stories? Or how did you know all these great Planned Parenthood stories? Because all of the Planned Parenthood stories are not abortion-related stories. I mean, if I had a dime for how Planned Parenthood was some person's only choice for health care that they can afford in college when their parents didn't have money. If I had $1 for every story that I heard about how someone went to Planned Parenthood, they thought it was something, and Planned Parenthood told them it was something else, and they was able to get treatment to beat cancer before it was too big. I mean, I've heard so many stories, and I think mainly because of the accessibility that Planned Parenthood has offered people, it's been able to direct people to different places to get the care that they need that if we didn't provide those services. And that says a lot about, you know, the culture of this organization. And it also says a lot about the culture of U.S. healthcare systems that they could not have prognosed all these people, you know. So I think that Planned Parenthood should have definitely a lot more respect in the culture for U.S. healthcare.
I agree. I think, I mean, I just what you're talking about in the way that Planned Parenthood, you know, does, and what you've been talking about, both of you have been talking about, with the way that you all do community education, like going out into the community and going, I mean, I think that Planned Parenthood, because a lot of these issues are so stigmatized, you almost need it more, like that education just isn't there. But still at the same time, like other areas could definitely benefit from that same type of community outreach. And I just had one other question also, just personally. I'm sure Justin has something else to say, but I was wondering what I don't know how long you both have been working for Planned Parenthood, but just what in your experience have you seen in terms of like the changes in the way, either better and or worse that like from when you started working, in the field with Planned Parenthood with regard to, especially abortion, because that's what's the most stigmatized, and sex health education versus where it is now? Like, how has that changed in the time that you've worked in this field?
Yeah. So I'll go first because I'm the younger of the time. I've been with Planned Parenthood for about a year now. And one thing that I've seen is that Planned Parenthood is constantly striving to be more inclusive and more to give voice and reach out to communities that are often marginalized and underserved. And actually, I'm going to use this to pivot about this great program that Antoine is actually managing and created and got off the ground, this Black organizing program where we're seeking to, work directly in the communities with people who are from the communities to make sure that we're getting our message out there in a way that resonates with that community. That's not just we know each community is different and the overall message might not fit what the community needs. So Antoine, can you tell us a little bit about that Black organizing program that you've been working on?
I can. And first of all, Aerris, she said she's only been here a year, but Aerris has done a lot in her first year. Believe it or not. She came in a tough time, so she's been amazing. Yeah, the Black Organizing Fellowship the term is Black Lifestyles for Culture and Knowledge. And I saw an opportunity to really kind of engage more young professionals who are African American or Black around the work that we do around organizing and building community and just really community engagement, Black businesses, sexual health care, sexual identity, and obviously policy and organizing, as I mentioned. And so I feel like it's a really cool role, but so many people that I come across ask me, how did you get that job? And I really don't have one answer. I think the thing is everybody has sort of a different inroad, but one thing you had to be was always interested in making a change. And if you have to sort of that natural next. So a lot of people have that and didn't know what to do. So I kind of had this idea of starting something that would work with people who already had some experience in life that could pivot into this type of work and also utilize their natural skills that they have, because I think that's one of the things that I found very necessary for me. I came from a totally different background. But the interesting thing is my grandfather was a healthcare organizer, and I never wanted to go into healthcare organizing because he lived in a clinic every day. And so, but just so happened when it came, it was just the perfect fit. I also moved to say, I've been with the organization for 6 years, and one thing I can say we've learned how to do is we've learned how to work and strategically stay ahead of the bell curve in terms of these statewide legislation things.
That's what I was wondering too. Yeah, how the perception of you guys has changed for better or for worse.
Oh my God, I feel like it's definitely changed for better. I think we're a much more savvy organization in the States. In the South, and mind you, fighting for reproductive rights and justice in the southern states are just difficult in all the United States. Even amongst the Planned Parenthood affiliates, they praise us for coming to work every day. And we do it so much that we don't really think that it's a thing, but we just know we all burnt out and tired at some points and need a vacation.
Yeah.
But
it's definitely,
the day, I think that
there's a level of heroism
across the state with navigating through these transformative times. The Trump era, I can tell you when it first happened, I think we all needed some self-care days. By the end of it, we were we ready. What's next? It was we kind of just knew what to do, and it's been really cool.
That's great.
Well, it's definitely heroic what you guys are doing, on a lot of levels, but especially being in the South, and we saw what happened in Knoxville. So hopefully you guys will stay safe.
Shout out to Knoxville, by the way.
Shout out to Knoxville.
Right.
Yes.
I just want to ask you to respond to 2 words, and then we'll let you guys go.
We gotta go. Oh my God.
The 2 words are Marsha
Come back anytime.
Blackburn.
Oh,
What happens when I say Marsha Black? Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Quick, she brings that out in everybody. Everybody needs to not listen to Marsha Blackburn on this topic. She's full of lies.
Yes.
And she's probably one of the biggest detractors of Planned Parenthood, which is a tough thing.
Yeah, it's easy to talk about people if you don't actually, it's easy to talk about people than it is to talk to people. So I feel like it's a lot about talking about people when really you should be talking to, like, why do you think people come to Planned Parenthood? Like, do you want to know? Are you interested?
Right.
Well, she won't do a town hall even, so.
That's true.
Wow.
She hasn't done a town hall since February 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I don't, honestly, I really don't have words to describe a person like her. Like, you know what's so funny? People always ask me, like, don't you get really frustrated with the protesters? I really don't have a problem with people having their own opinion. Yeah. What I have a problem with is when you are in power, or you use your power or your privilege or whatever you have, your masculinity, whatever you feel like you have, and you use it to really hurt people that you don't even realize what you're doing. And the magnitude at which you're doing it. And she sits in a very obviously powerful position, and she's very influential with so many people who I know will not come to Memphis and talk to anybody in Memphis, will not talk to anybody in, you know, who live in certain zip codes of our state. And you can't speak for everybody, just like I don't believe I can speak for everybody. And I just think that so the words I use to describe Marsha Blackburn is harmful.
Yeah, definitely. And she does pretend to speak. She does claim to speak for all of Tennessee every time she opens her mouth, and she simply doesn't. But thank you guys so much for coming on here. Thanks for the work you do.
Yes.
Let people
Thanks
know
for having us.
Absolutely. It's
fun.
Just, they can go to.
It's fun. You can do it again if you like.
What's the website for Planned Parenthood Memphis?
Well, we're on Instagram and Facebook, PPTNM, or Instagram and Twitter at PPTNM Cares, and then was it PlannedParenthood.org? You can find us there, right?
I think you could actually go to www.pptnm.org and it'll redirect you to the actual site.
Okay.
And I encourage everybody to go check that out because we've got some advocacy days happening March 21st, 25th. Lots of events, lots of opportunities to connect with legislators about some of this legislation that's happening and to make your voice heard about how you disagree with all of this terrible legislation. So
Thank you for the Aerris. I also want to say too, go to our Get Involved section and get involved with volunteering in Tennessee and Memphis. We are seeing sort of an increase in protesters. We would love to have folks who's interested in being patient greeters and making sure that our patients feel welcome and happy and safe in their own skin, walking from the parking lot to the door. I mean, while it sounds like a very simple task, I mean, it could be really tough. I know I'm not able to be a patient greeter because I break the rules because it's so hard to not want to. But there are people out there who is wired away in a way that they can, you know, ignore the noise, get patients to the door, and patients really appreciate it. So if you're interested in doing that, go get involved on the website.
All right. Well, thank you guys both. And just to show what you're up against, you know, in Tennessee, we have hoarded by far the most TANF dollars for low-income families. That's us at the top left. Over $730 million intended for needy families, hoarded by Tennessee, by far the most in the state. So people need to start.
That should be a lawsuit.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. We will talk to you soon and stay in touch for sure. All right.
Thank you so much. Thanks for what you're doing. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Take care to both of you.
Thank you.